Good morning, good evening, good night, where you're watching this transmission. It is I, Mike Martins. Thank you for joining me. Another really good article that I think a lot of other cities and countries will start taking suit. And where is it taking off? In Canada, of course. They're always finding ways to tax or get your ticket or get your proper regulations. Everything in Canada needs a ticket except being an accountant. If you want to be a certified accountant in Canada, that's okay. You can do anyone's taxes. So when you screw up their taxes, the government won't fine you. They'll fine the owner of the company because you hired your accountant. So what is happening, people? Well, they want to. BC's Class 4 license requirement could deter ride-hailing drivers. So what's happening is people that do Uber and all that kind of stuff, Canada's got this new thing. They want to have a Class 4 license requirement. I think it's for taxis. And watch this. Those who want to drive for ride-hailing companies in the future will need a Class 4 commercial license and a criminal record check. That most of the people that do this probably, and you know what hurts the most is the people who were wrongly convicted of something. Cop having a bad day, does some stuff, I'm charging you, I'm going to ruin your life. Then what? Really? This is bad, because once Canada applies something, the rest of the English-speaking world will say, this is a great idea. Let's apply this in London. Let's apply this in Sydney. Let's apply this in Seattle. And let's apply this in Miami. And then it becomes a big problem. But how would they police it? How would the police know? Okay, let's read the article. BC proposed license requirement for ride-hailing drivers will be among the most restrictive in the country and could deter people from driving for companies like Uber or Lyft. On Monday, the provincial government introduced legislation to allow ride-hailing companies to operate in BC, likely by late next year. So they're so behind on getting up and running with technology. It also said that the ride-hailing and taxi drivers will be required to have a Class 4 restricted license instead of the standard Class 5 license that most BC drivers have, and undergo mandatory criminal record checks. Transportation Minister Claire Taverina said that the licensing requirement is a matter of safety, and anyone who is earning money by driving people around will have to make the investment in the license. Well, it's just a tax grab, right? Now, watch everyone else do this for a nice tax grab. All starts in Canada. It's got stricter limits on it, and I think that anybody who's getting in as a passenger wants to know the driver is as safe as possible, Taverina said. That's a good point right there too. I'm not gonna smash this, but that's a good point. In addition to allowing a person to drive for ride-hailing service, a Class 4 restricted license allows a person to drive taxis, limousines carrying up to 10 people, special vehicles for transporting people with disabilities, ambulances, and any vehicle in Class 5. According to ICBC, a driver wanting a Class 4 must be age of 19 and older, have a Class 5 license or out-of-province equivalent, have clean driving record, have no outstanding fines or debts with ICBC, and must undergo a medical exam. More money out of your pocket. Kaboom! The commercial road test include the pre-trip inspection test, and a higher score is required for both knowledge and road tests. The license is renewed every 5 years, and the medical assessment must be repeated at regular intervals. Uber's general manager of cities for Western Canada said he has no idea why the province decided to make a Class 4 license a requirement for ride-hailing drivers. Yeah, me too. I have no idea either. Particularly when other provinces allow people to use their regular licenses. Drivers experience safe drivers have a third time understanding why they would need to get a special driver's license to drive the same vehicle that they are already driving. So it definitely becomes a barrier to a lot of people to participate, he said. Alberta has a similar licensing requirement. Under legislation passed 2 years ago, ride-hailing drivers must hold a Class 1, 2, or 4 license. all of which are for professional drivers. Wow. Wow. So you gotta be a Formula One driver, I guess, to drive around Uber, I guess, eh? Class 1 allows someone to drive any vehicle other than motorcycles. Class 2 is for bus drivers and allows someone to drive any vehicle that is Class 3 and 4 and or 5. License holders can drive, and Class 4 for those who want to drive a taxi, ambulance, or small bus. In Quebec, a Class 4C license, taxi, or limousine license is needed, along with a background check and completion of any online training session. That's so weird. In Ontario, ride-hailing drivers are required to have only one Class G license, which is the standard driver's license. This is also the same case in Manitoba. Oh, don't get this story out there, because they're just going to say, hey, wait, we can do medical checks and charge them $85, and we can get them to do this and take a course and do this. And Van Hemmen said that where licensing is more restrictive, ride-hailing is limited to larger centers, and some groups of people are less likely or unable to participate, such as women or those who are deaf or hard of hearing. Yeah, that kind of. Tom Ross, a professor with the University of BC's Sauder School of Business, agreed that licensing requirements will be the barrier of recruiting ride-hailing drivers. A lot of people may discouraged by that, especially if they were planning on doing Uber on a very part-time basis, he said. The path that the government has decided to take is the opposite of what's recommended in a report commissioned by the province and prepared by taxi industry expert Dan Hara. Hara recommended going with the Class 5 licenses in combination with a mandate taxi driver training program. Van Hemmen said, because the legislation doesn't directly address the license class, Uber and others will continue to lobby to have the Class 5 license be the standard if the driver has a safe record. I mean, isn't that all? But no. We'll get to the accountant thing in a second here. I hope that the government is willing to continue to engage until the entire framework is finalized, and will continue to work with the NDP government and all parties to ensure the best practices from other jurisdictions are adopted in BC and lay out the benefits of doing so, said Van Hemmen said. So here's the deal, guys. They always do this kind of stuff here. When I moved to BC and I started seeing all the red tape for anything, you got to get a serving it right to serve water to people in the bar. Certificate. So you got to get your certificates. Everything in BC requires a certificate, except if you want to be an accountant. You could come here, be an accountant, do a bunch of accounting work for a bunch of companies, and if you screw up, guess what? Nothing happens to you. Do you know why? Because you hired the accountant, and the government goes ahead and starts prosecuting the business owners and not the accountant. So why don't they get a ticket, or why don't accountants in BC doing people's businesses and making sure they're doing their tax get some sort of training instead of publicizing their accountants? It hurts. It sucks. It only works when it benefits. You know, it's like the HST. They kept it on new vehicles, but you can't expense the HST. Why would you keep it on new vehicles for? Only in BC. The HST was phenomenal when it came to small business. The HST, everyone said, oh, harmonized sales tax, it's horrible. No, now we have two taxes again. Now you can't expense one, and one you have to fully forward. Before, you would offset your HST, the HST you collect on your rent, on your products, on your electricity, on all your bills, and you offset it with what you make. And if you have a slow month, guess what? You don't pay much back. But now, they have it back to the old system, and it's destroying small businesses. HST was good for small business, I know, because I had my business. And when I paid my HST on my rent, I got it kind of mad when my rent payment went up because of the HST. But then when I had to expense my taxes, my HST taxes, oh man, was it ever phenomenal. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comments below, is this going to spread like a virus to other cities to collect more incentives from Uber drivers? Comment below, let me know.